All right, we're here today with my buddy James, and this is going to be the second episode of the Icy Ghost Podcast. I want to apologize. I am facing quite a bit of issues with scheduling and getting guests on and everything like that, and I got a lot going on right now, but we're always going to find time, and we're going to make it happen, you know? So, James, if you want to introduce yourself.
What's up, guys? My name is James. I currently work here with Muscle City. That's how I met Jason. We've been friends for,
2-3 years?
Yeah. A few years now. I want to say he's the homeboy. We bonded, whether it's through, like, boxing or just chopping up downstairs like we always do. That's kind of how this podcast came together. I'm excited to be on the show, and I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, always. So, James, this podcast is about ghost and paranormal stuff, but I wanna hear about how you're doing right now. What do you got going on? What you doing?
Honestly, I just recovered from COVID over the holidays, so I started actively working back in the gym a few weeks ago. Thankfully, the fatigue and stuff is a lot better, so I've had a little bit more energy to get my stuff done. I've been mainly picking up some more work here. Still trying to pursue some side hustles, whether it be anything from like tattooing or entrepreneurship. I'm in a relationship right now, so that's been taking up a good portion of my time, but been blessed, met a good person, everything's going well. We both try to elevate each other, so
it sounds like you got some good energy around you right now.
Yes, sir.
No, that's great. It's funny because you and I caught COVID at the same. We caught it after that boxing session we had.
I'm pretty sure I gave it to you, but
Yeah, but so I had COVID the same time you had it, and it was like at the end of Christmas, towards the New Year, January. So like I had COVID, took 2 weeks off. After that, I helped a friend of mine move warehouses, his whole business. Yeah. Dropped 3 tons on my hand. Got away with I dropped it on these 2 fingers, and I ripped it out. It was a pallet that weighed 3 tons, and I had my hand under it to try to get something out. It was a piece of wood that was stuck on the pallet jack. My brother comes out of nowhere, rips the pallet jack. The whole thing falls down on my hand, and I rip it out just in time.
So Jackie's the evil twin. I got you.
Yeah, he tried to take me out right then and there. He tried to end my jewelry pursuit in a sense. But
messed up, dog.
And then after that, I got the stomach flu.
Okay.
So I lost a lot of weight in the past month.
Right.
But so I actually, as of 3 days ago, we're still talking it out. We're doing the moving. I've merged my jewelry company with my homeboy's jewelry company. So now we've merged our companies together. We're starting a new repair shop, and we're just 10 minutes away from the gym right here. I'm gonna have some kind of grand opening thing going on. It's not open to the public. It's not like it's not like a typical jewelry store. It's all appointment only.
Okay.
And we do everything.
Awesome.
Everything. Engagement. You want a giant monkey pendant, I got you. You want a giant shark pendant, I got you. We'll make it happen. Diamonds, gold, everything you want, platinum, we'll make it happen. It's exciting. And I think it's crazy to talk about because it's like, when you have so much stuff going for you, you get like this energy rush, right? You feel when things are going right, and you feel like the people around you, the direction you're going, it's like everything seems to fall into the right place.
Yeah.
But last year, I had times where like I felt like everything was falling apart multiple times.
Right.
Do you get that feeling sometimes when like something goes wrong and it seems like more and more things like fall on top of it too?
Yeah, there's definitely I'm definitely a victim to that snowball effect, and I think a lot of it is, it could be coincidental. I do think a lot of it is also perspective. I think when one thing goes wrong, there's a certain momentum to that. And I think you start viewing maybe other aspects of your life slightly differently because whether it's affected you or not, like a failure is a failure. No one wants to take an L. And that can start to mess with your confidence. And unfortunately, that can like leak out into your other pursuits or other things you're trying to do. But, recently I've been trying to keep more of a healthy mindset. Like if something fails, it just is what it is. And I try to compartmentalize it. Like just, give yourself time to quote unquote grieve about whatever loss you have to take. Then you just kind of have to keep moving on. Thankfully, I've, had a lot of inspirational people who they've been through the mud. They've had to deal with this kind of stuff. And every time they pick it up, they end up becoming better. It becomes a learning lesson, which, I don't think you can truly succeed until you know what it means to truly fail, because you can't really appreciate those things. Otherwise, if you've never really failed, you don't really know like what success is, what it feels like to you. You're just kind of always a step behind. You're like,
it's meaningless.
Yeah, there's always like a little bit missing there. So, you know, I think I used to definitely feel some type of way about failures. I'd let it keep me down, affect my mental health. But then eventually I was just like, you know what? A lot of it is perspective. I think a lot of our, whether it be like depression, and this isn't me trying to invalidate people's depression, but I do believe a lot of it is a lot of self-imposed stuff. We get in our own heads. Intrusive thoughts are very real, regardless of whether you have the greatest support system in the world or not. You know, you feel like you know yourself best, and our minds are very powerful. But in that same aspect, you can also condition yourself to think more positively and, you know, forgive yourself more. Because at the end of the day, I think that's, people are a little too hard on themselves. And I can only speak for myself, but I do see that as kind of a common theme with a lot of people. So, you know, if there's any advice I could give to anybody kind of like struggling with life not going the way they want it to right now, it's like, hopefully you have a long life to live. Again, take your losses as lessons, and then just try to build off of that. Don't ignore the negative stuff you had to go through. Otherwise, then it really just becomes an L and not a learning lesson.
It really just adds on to your success story.
Yeah.
You know, all that, like all the L's I've taken, I mean, come on, we've taken all kinds of L's, you know? And I feel like all the L's you take, it just adds on to your story to when you succeed. You're going to be like, yo, look at all these losses I've had just to get this one W. You know, Murphy's Law states the more you fear something, the more likely it will happen.
Correct.
You know, so I'm a big believer in manifesting. I'm going to get Duke on this podcast. You know, Duke, that man is the one that really pushed me to like really think like you can manifest anything you want. Duke manifested everything. You know, he manifested where he is now in life. And I think it's a really good mentality to have. You want something, manifest it. Agreed. You know, I'm not just like, you know, sit in your room, manifest. It's not just going to do itself. It's not just going to pop up. But like manifest it and work towards it.
Exactly.
It's like the opposite of Murphy's Law.
Right.
But that's my biggest thing. Like, is there something in your life that you feel like you've manifested?
That's actually a great question. You know what, I would say in the last 2 or 3 years. So I graduated from culinary school in around 2013, I believe.
So we got a chef in the house.
You know what I'm saying? You know, I can whip it up a little bit. But yeah, so after I graduated, my first job actually right after culinary school was working at GameStop, which, you know, obviously that wasn't planned, but to be honest, I didn't have the best time at culinary school. I don't want to romanticize it and make it seem like it was some type of great thing. It was a good experience. I learned a lot of useful skill sets, but by the end of it, I was just very exhausted getting through the schooling. I ended up having to do an externship, which originally I had a paid one. Some things happened, and then I had to move back to Atlanta from Auburn University to basically I did an unpaid internship while I had to work another job, like 20 hours there, 30 hours unpaid. So I'm working 50 hours a week, only getting paid for 20 hours of that work. And it was barely just enough where I had to sleep on my friend's apartment floor because he lived way closer than I was. So I had just enough to drive there and then drive back. And then like I'd eat like 1 or 2 meals a day or whatever they were serving at the internship. So yeah, so after that experience, I was a little bit kind of, I guess you could say I was a little salty with the whole industry. So I was like, you know what, let me just like pivot real quick. I'm freshly graduated, like, you know, cooking opportunities, the restaurant industry. It's one of those things that'll always be there. So I was like, let me try my hand out at GameStop because, you know, I grew up enjoying video games, gaming a lot. So I was like, okay, maybe this will be kind of a cool experience. It was also my first retail job. So I was like, let me just try it out. I worked there long enough to become it's called an SGA, which is just a senior game advisor. But it just basically means you hold a key and you do assistant manager work without getting paid assistant manager wages.
Of course. They give you the title, not the pay.
Exactly. They try to like glorify this or that, but it's honestly just a way to get more labor out of them without much of a substantial pay raise. So I do view it as a good experience. I met some cool people through it, but after I left that, I immediately went into my family business. you know, for as long as I can remember since they moved to this country, they've just always done restaurant work, which is part of what inspired me to even go to culinary school. So, you know, I was kind of with the family business from, I'd say roughly, let's say 2015 to about 2019. It was a high and a low point. I feel like I grew a lot more independent, but as anybody knows, working in the restaurant industry, it can be very volatile and very stressful. So while, you know, my bank account was looking great, mentally, physically, I was probably at my lowest point. And it got to the point where eventually, you know, I sat down, spoke with my mom, and I was just like, look, I appreciate everything, but I think I need to take a step back and, you know, just pursue something. I'll start living my life for myself, because even before all that, you know how it is. Like, when my parents first moved to this country, they didn't really know anybody. Most of our family was back home in Korea. So, you know, they didn't really have anybody to babysit. So my routine up until basically middle school was wake up, go to school. They pick me up after school, and I just spend the rest of the day at the back of the restaurant. You know, they'd always have like a little place set up, built for me and my brother to try to be comfortable there. But at the end of the day, it's just like, I felt like I was missing out a lot on socializing, just having like, you know, a more traditional childhood.
So do you feel like you were really trying to manifest another path outside of the restaurant business?
I was trying to find like just a completely different lifestyle. I had just grown so kind of sick of what I was doing. I was just getting by day to day. It was giving me very bad spending habits, because, you know, that was the only benefit at that point I saw of working for the family business.
So much money coming in, you might as well buy something nice for yourself to keep yourself going.
I was trying to buy happiness, which, you know, I'd feel great for about a day or two, then regret it, and then be like, what am I doing?
Money doesn't buy happiness. Money makes your life more comfortable, but it doesn't buy happiness.
Agreed. I do believe 100%. It won't directly buy you happiness, but it does give you access to more opportunities to find that happiness. But like you said, just because you got an extra comma like on your bank account doesn't mean like that's going to translate to just being happier. But yeah, so in 2019, after I left, you know, I had a decent bit of savings saved up. You know, my mom was kind enough to kind of, I guess we could call it almost a what's the word? She gave me a little bit of a lump sum just to help me out. Also, you know, we had talked about it. You know, my parents were, you know, they were trying really hard, did what they could. And in the beginning, I wasn't really able to get paid, I guess, as much as a lot of people think I should have been getting paid. But I was okay with it. I was making enough money to get by and be able to afford some nice things.
When you were working in the restaurant, how was your energy level? Like, did you feel like you had... Do you think it's because of how stressful restaurant business is that everyone around you had like the same negative, stressed out energy, and they kind of got onto you?
I would say so. Unfortunately, I took a lot of the stuff that happened at work home with me. And
personally.
Yeah, and that's because also it's just like I could never really turn off. Like, you know, I was always jealous of people who kind of had regular office hours, because they're like, yeah, you're toiling away from 9 to 5, but after you go home, for the most part, like, you're done. Like, you can just be at home. But for me, I was just like, on my way to home, I could be getting calls nonstop. Something's breaking, or, you know, somebody needs a refund, or there's some issue, somebody called out. So it was just, I felt like my brain was on nonstop. And eventually I didn't really have time for myself to take care of myself. So I was just not in a good place, on top of the extra stress of working with family, because I could see how much it was stressing our personal relationship. And, you know, if there were any like family life issues, somehow, unfortunately, it would always seem to make its way into the restaurant while we're working. And it was just like, you know, I'm not perfect, but I'd say I do a pretty good job of compartmentalizing those things. Home issues are home issues. We can address those things at home. Work issues are work issues, and that's where we address these things. But, you know, I just didn't like the way it was kind of affecting my relationships with people and my outlook on life. So really more for my mental health and physical health, I was like, I decided to take a step back. So there was a good period of time I chose not to work at all. Thankfully, I had enough savings where I could do it comfortably, take trips, do whatever I wanted. And you know, while I was working at the family restaurant, I basically almost took no vacations for those 5 years. I think I might have took like a weekend to South Carolina with some friends once. But yeah, over the course of 5 years, I just gotten extremely burnt out. So, you know, I felt in a sense almost like I earned this. I'm entitled to like take this time off. And during that time, I feel like I had a lot of great personal growth. I would say, you know, that's where I started really meeting the people I consider my closest friends now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, growing up, because I told you a bit of how I didn't really get a chance as much to like socialize with friends and build those friendships and really just learn how to be a good friend in general.
So when you were a kid, did you ever have imaginary friends? That's something you gotta look out for if you ever have kids.
I wouldn't say I had imaginary friends, because thankfully I always kind of had my brother there. So like we would just hang out with each other a lot. But what I did instead is I got just a big portion of, I feel like, how I grew up was through TV, through media, movies. That's what I would do to kind of bide my time.
Yep.
And yeah, I feel like it also unfortunately gave me a lot of unrealistic expectations, because I'd see like, you know, TV's produced versions of friendship and, you know, those kind of dynamics.
It's like Instagram is just the highlights.
Exactly. You know, they're just showing you this romanticized, glorified version of it without really showing you how real friendships are developed, maintained, grow together. So, you know, there was a little while, honestly, a good portion, I had trouble kind of keeping friends. I'll be the first to say it. I was a bit of a habitual bridge burner. Like, you know, if I just didn't like something my friends were doing, I had no problem just cutting them off like that.
Yeah.
Because I'm definitely naturally introverted, so I'm fine being by myself. And that's not, you know, I don't mean that in any type of sad way. I just genuinely like personal time.
You do fine by yourself.
Yeah, 100%.
Some people don't do well by themselves.
Exactly.
Other people do well.
And I think a lot of it too was maybe the types of friends I was hanging out with. Like we would maybe have one thing in common, but everything else we'd be very different. So when I met the first group of friends I actually really made, the new group, was after I left the business. I had gotten my first tattoos when I was in high school. Mom found out, obviously didn't like it, but we came to an agreement that as long as I work for them, or, you know, they have any type of financial responsibility with me, no more tattoos. And I said, you know what, that's fair.
Yep.
So waited 10 years after I left the business. One of the first things on my mind, I was just like, you know what, it's about time I do this. I've been just religiously looking at tattoos, just super obsessed with it. So crazy story. And I, you know, to me, I'm a Christian, by the way. So to me, I feel like this was one of those, God sent me a certain group of people that really helped me open up more and like learn how to enjoy a bit more of my life. I had been going to LA Fitness with my brother for a while, and, you know, he's the real hooper in the family, but I was still hooping here and there. We go there and, you know, we're trying to get a pickup game going. I see some guys, they're all like pretty heavily tatted, but I know I'd never met them before, but something about them seemed kind of familiar. So, you know, we invite them to play some pickup. We play for a few hours, chop it up, like bond. And, you know, it kind of ended there. But when I went home, I couldn't get that feeling like I know these people out of my head. So I opened up like my bookmarks and stuff, and around that time I had been shopping around different tattoo shops to see like where I wanted to go, and lo and behold, it was like the group of tattoo artists and the owner at the gym. So I was like, that's kind of weird, like that.
Dink.
Yeah. So I was like, you know what, that almost seems like a sign, because I was stuck between 2 or 3 places, and their shop was like one of those 2 or 3. So I decided to head there maybe a couple days later, did a consultation, and I mentioned like, hey, do you remember, I think we hooped together a little bit ago? And then, you know, he remembered, we chopped it up a little more, set the appointment. And then after my first tattoo, while we were talking, you know, we realized we had a lot in common. Like, you know, we had already kind of hooped before. We know we go to the same gym. And then throughout that process, my first tattoo with him was 12 hours. So we had a lot of time to like talk and get to know each other. By the end of it, he actually told me they were going to Colorado for a big tattoo convention. And, you know, I really liked the piece he did on me. He liked it. So he was telling me how at like conventions you can like enter pieces you've done and maybe win awards. And, you know, that kind of really appealed to me. So I was like, okay, you know, I'll definitely think about it. And then when I went home, normally I'm very safe. Like, I don't really like to put myself out there too much. So I was just like, you know what, I'm not really sure if this is for me. But then I told myself, like, the whole reason I did what I did was to try to experience new things in life that I didn't have the opportunity for before. So after I told myself that, I booked the ticket, told him, hey, I'm coming with y'all. Like, I got a separate hotel room. And then from there, like, we've just grown as really close personal friends. Shout out to Golden Anchor Tattoos in Chambly.
Yep.
Some of the most genuine, professional, talented guys I know.
Is that the one that Jose works at?
Yeah, well, Jose, so shout out to the homie Jose.
Yep.
He was working with Golden Anchor up until recently. You know, there was an opportunity for him to buy a house maybe like 40, 50 minutes away. And, you know, just kind of, I don't want to say get a fresh start, because everything was great at Golden Anchor, but for him to maybe like expand his personal business.
Take the next step.
Yeah, so he moved into like a private studio with one of our other homeboys, Tino, who also used to work at Golden Anchor. And, you know, everything's good. Like, everyone's on good terms. Everyone's homies still. But he was working at Golden Anchor. Now he's at Green Vibe Art. Shout out to them as well.
Crazy thing is, I went to high school with Jose, and you were showing me his Instagram page, and I was like, yo, this guy's work is fantastic. And then I looked at the name, and I saw a story he posted up. I'm like, that's the Jose I went to high school with. I was like the homie in high school. And crazy, small world.
When you told me that, I was like, bro, that is... I almost get goosebumps when things like that happen, because it's just weird how everything interconnects like
Everything's connected. It's crazy. Have you ever had any other moments in your life where, like, you felt like God or whoever is up there that you believe in gave you a sign, like, to tell you to go one way or the other?
So in terms of like basically like divine intervention type moments, I would say like the last few years have kind of felt like that in a sense. I've had a few events, and to me it was just at that time I was processing it more, trying to do things on my own, trying to figure it out on my own. But, you know, my new girlfriend I met, she's very religious, and, you know, I grew up more religious. I grew up doing a lot of church activities, being involved, but, you know, in my 20s I kind of strayed away from it a bit. So, you know, after talking with her, I started like praying and thinking about it more from that perspective, in terms of like how God could have influenced whatever's going on in my life. And it made me realize, you know what, there was a lot of times where I thought it was like I messed up, and that's why things worked out the way it was. But, you know, my new perspective is more like, you know, he has a plan, everything happens for a reason. So the people I met, like even joining Muscle City, it was kind of crazy, because at that time I had just been going to LA Fitness as usual, but then once Corona hit and we had a lockdown, you know, I was just like, I was going crazy being like cooped up indoors. So I decided, you know what, let me join the first gym that opens up. Like right after the things are lifted a little bit. And I was like doing my research. LA was going to be closed for till who knows when at that point. And then I saw Muscle City, and I was just like, I feel like I've driven past that place several times, because I don't live too far from here. So I was like, you know, let me go see what this is about. I went straight to their Instagram page, and they had just posted something saying, hey, we're going to be opening back up whenever it was. I think it was maybe like in a few days. So I was just like, let me check this out, because during quarantine too, I'd gotten really into watching like powerlifting and like Olympic weightlifting, getting really like interested in that. And I'd been doing a little bit of that at LA Fitness, but I didn't know what I was doing. So, you know, after I came here, you know, they were open. They kind of walked down to me, or they kind of talked me through everything. I was like, you know what, this sounds perfect for me. You guys are a 24-hour gym right down the street. So I was like, bet. I signed up that day. I was super excited about it. And then, you know, the first few months, it was kind of like, I was still a little bit like shy. And, you know, it's a very different gym. This gym has such a crazy energy. Like, you're not going to find another gym like it. So,
and we're not advertising for Eric.
No.
Eric has not paid us a single dollar for this.
No. Anybody who's heard me talk about this gym know, like, I'm basically like a broken record. I say this every time. But, you know, it just felt different. You could tell it was like serious people. Like, they were serious about their training, and I respected that. Because up to that point, you know, I was just really doing a lot more boxing and like whatever type of like weightlifting I had accumulated over the years. But, you know, it was a good 2-3 months. I would come in early in the morning, put my headphones on, and I would just be in the corner by myself working on the bag. And I'd be there for like 2 hours, 3 hours, just nonstop rounds. Just because honestly, I felt a little bit like intimidated by like, because there was so much new equipment that I'd only seen in videos that I was excited to like try it, but I didn't really know how to do it. I didn't want to look dumb in front of all these people. So thankfully, my boy Chris, who's a trainer here, super great guy, you know, he kind of broke the ice with me, and then eventually he kind of introduced me to everyone else. And bro, it felt so natural. I was just like, oh wow, like we all became real close real quick, and then since then, like, they've become like a second family to me. So yeah, I feel like God kind of put me in that place to find these people at that time, because, you know, I was kind of struggling still. But yeah, once I met them, my life has had a very different look since then. And I never thought I'd be in this position, you know, working at a gym. Like, I have a culinary degree. I worked at GameStop once. Like, nothing about that says, oh, you're going to be working in a gym, especially a gym like this. So since then, like, you know, I feel like God has kind of put certain things into motions in certain places for me. Super grateful for that.
You think he purposely surrounded you with positive energy so that you can have a brighter outlook on life?
I agree,
kind of
100%, because, you know, I've met like people who've had similar upbringings or backgrounds like me throughout the years, but to find a whole group of people who I felt like, wow, like, we've been through a lot of the same stuff. It was almost this unspoken level of understanding, which I really appreciated. And because everybody was, you know, around my age, a lot of us were more like emotionally mature. Nobody was really a high maintenance friend where if you don't contact them every day or every other day, they feel some type of way. Everyone understood, like, you know, we're all busy, we're all trying to do our thing here. You know, when we have a time, everything's good.
You know, that's crazy too, because like that's why I decided to do this podcast. And I felt comfortable enough to do it here, and Eric was kind enough to allow me to use the studio. And, you know, like, I was looking at another place to like rent to do this podcast. Eric was like, nah, use my studio. And I was just like, that's love, man. And
100%.
And like, I one day I will repay him, you know, kind of thing. And that's the thing, you know, there's so many people that are surrounded by people that shouldn't be around them.
100%.
And they have no idea. You know, well, when Tasha was on the podcast with me, she was talking about how she can spy a toxic person like that. And, you know, some people just can't see it. And it really matters who's in your circle, you know? 100%. You know, you got people that go around, they try to get the biggest circle possible. How about getting the tightest circle possible? You know, no leaks, you know? And, you know, that's why I feel so comfortable doing this podcast with the guests here at this gym. I mean, I'll walk down there right now, ask the first 5 people I see, do you believe in ghosts? You know? So yeah, let's segue into the more paranormal stuff. I know people are probably like, hey Jason, what's going on with this podcast? I thought it was supposed to be about ghosts, blah blah blah, stuff like that. You know, and you know, that's the thing. We try to keep it real here. Nothing here is scripted. James and I talked about the other day. I'm like, you want to hop on a podcast with me? He's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. I didn't send him a script.
Nah, we freeballing right now.
We freeballing. I just had McDonald's earlier, like 10 minutes ago, and I came up, all right, we're ready to go.
Exactly.
So I think the biggest thing, and we've talked a lot about manifesting, a lot about energy and the people around us and stuff. But how do you feel about spirits? I know you're religious yourself.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about spirits and ghosts? So
growing up, I was definitely more, I want to say I believed a little bit more in the paranormal and the supernatural. And a lot of that was more fear-based. We actually touched on this earlier. Like, growing up, my parents would tell me, like, certain things, like, if you don't whistle at nighttime, because you'll attract snakes. And for the longest time, I believed that. But even after I got to the age where I was like, there's no like real scientific proof behind that, even when I knew that, I realized, oh, you know what, I still feel kind of uncomfortable whistling at night because of just how I was raised in that way.
Yeah, that's funny, because we were just talking about that. This was like months ago. I was in the backyard, and my dad was in the backyard doing his thing. He was looking at his koi fish or whatever.
Right.
Then my mom comes out of nowhere, and she was like, don't do that. And both me and my brother are just kind of like, what's she talking about? Like, what's he, you know? And then we just like, whatever, you know, it's probably something he did it before.
Right.
And then we had dinner, and at dinner, my mom said it again. She like looked at my dad and was like, don't do that again. And then I straight up asked her, like, what did he do?
Right.
And she was like, he was whistling outside in the dark. And I was like, so?
Right.
And she was straight up like, you don't whistle at night because it attracts spirits. And I was like, what? It gave me goosebumps. I was like, what? I was like, that man was just out there whistling to his fish. And another thing is, she was saying, like, you're not supposed to have like a red light in front of your house. That's why you ever see like a little like If you're Buddhist, a lot of Buddhists, they have a little shrine in their house, and they usually have these red lights, like a fake candle that has red LEDs. Yeah. And it's a red light because the red light attracts spirits. They're like drawn to it. But you know, your shrine is more of like an offering to the spirits. So you want the spirits to come and take the food and everything. You know, you don't want red lights in front of your house every night to invite any spirit that walks by. That's kind of the idea behind that.
Well, that makes sense.
Have you ever had it? So you don't really, you believe in it less now.
I definitely believe it in less now. There was a certain time where I just didn't really believe it at all. I kind of rejected the whole notion of those kind of things. And even now, I'd say I'm still fairly skeptical, but I have definitely had some experiences which, you know, no matter what I do, it's kind of, there's really no other explanation for it.
What experiences? Do you have any that really pop up in your mind?
So I personally believe, because the only 2 times it's happened, and there was almost a third time it happened. The first 2 times happened when I was in Korea. I believe it was the last time I was there. I used to go every summer from like middle school to high school just to, you know, be able to experience the culture, see family, stuff like that. I remember there was one particular night. I was in my stepbrother's room. I believe I had just kind of had a talk with my mom, and you know, it didn't really go well, unfortunately, so I was a little emotionally charged. And so at that point I was just like, you know, I was just open to do whatever would get my mind off of it. So saw like a beer in the fridge, popped it open, drank. I'm not a heavy drinker, especially at that time, so after I chugged the thing, I was definitely like,
that 4% got you messed up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I got that Asian glow.
Oh,
yeah. It was not a good look and felt even worse, but I was just like, all right, I'm fine. So the way the room was set up, my stepbrother was in his bed right here, and I had kind of like a little cot or like a sleeping bag next to him. So I remember I was just feeling like super out of it, emotionally exhausted, physically exhausted. So I was just like, whatever, I'm just going to like lie down here. Maybe I'll doze off or whatever. So I remember lying down and just kind of checking my surroundings real quick, and then I remember like my eyes they were getting low, so I was like, okay, I'm about to take a nap or whatever. But the summers in Korea are extremely hot, and when it gets super hot, I just can't sleep. So, you know, it became kind of a struggle of like, I'm trying to sleep, but I'm too uncomfortable to sleep. So I remember I'm lying there, and then at one point I'm like blinking, and I vividly remember blinking, and then I blinked, and it felt like that time I blinked, it felt like it lasted a little bit longer than the other times. And then when my eyes opened back up again, something felt kind of off, but I was just like, I wasn't really trying to think about it too much. And then all of a sudden I got this weird like sense of anxiety. It came out of nowhere. So I was just like, that's weird. So I remember I tried to sit up, but then I was just like, yo, what's going on? My body was not reacting at all.
Okay. So you were having sleep paralysis, kind of.
Sleep paralysis, which, and I don't know if it's the same thing, but it, you know, it eventually ends up turning into an out-of-body experience. So I'll give you more details on that. Basically, as I was lying there, I'm trying to like sit up, nothing's working, and all of a sudden, after I've realized that something's wrong, now what's happening is I've realized I can't turn my head. I have no control of my body right now. I can just kind of move my eyes the way they are. So then all of a sudden I start hearing a really creepy laugh. Almost like something like you'd see from an evil clown in a movie.
Like a gesture?
Exactly.
Oh, man.
It was something like that, and it had that kind of energy. And what was freaking me out even more is I felt like the laughing, the source of it, was coming right out of my peripheral. Like it was just right out of the corner of my eye, where I was like, if I could turn my head even a centimeter, I could see what it is, but my body wouldn't allow me to.
Yep.
So I start getting like freaked out. I get more anxiety, and I remember like struggling, like get up, telling myself like get up. And then eventually, before I knew it, my perspective had changed. All of a sudden, I look around and I'm like, and my POV had changed into like a standing position, and I was like, that's really weird. I didn't bother looking back down. Like I was kind of freaked out, so I was just like observing around me. So then at that time, you know, I kind of realized like somehow I knew but didn't know that, okay, I don't think anybody knows what's going on right now, because when I like got up looking at my stepbrother, he's not reacting, he's still just on his bed doing his thing. So I remember walking out of the bedroom, and so the way it was set up, the living room was open, you take a left, you can see it, and then my parents' master bedroom was right next to it, and the door was closed. So I remember kind of either I was walking or fucking floating like a ghost. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I make my way out into like the main living quarter. I see my stepdad on the computer, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. I remember I opened the door to my parents' bedroom, and I saw my mom was talking to somebody on the phone. And then I like closed the door, kind of just looked around a little more, went back into my stepbrother's room, and then I don't really remember what happened. But then I remember I wake up, I'm back in my body. I start like, flexing my fingers and stuff to see like, okay, am I good again?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, that was weird. So I pop up, and I remember looking at my stepbrother and being like, hey, like, what was I just doing? And he was like, you were sleeping. And I was just like,
yeah.
I was like, that's weird. Where? I asked him like, hey, what's mom and dad doing? He was like, I think dad's on the computer. I think mom might be in the room or something. I was just like, that's really strange.
Yeah, it sounds like you astral projected. Was that the first time?
That was the absolute first time.
Was that the only time?
No. So there was a second time that happened shortly after, but...
How old were you when this was going on?
I was going from my junior to senior year, so I was probably 17 or 18.
Mm-hmm.
But the part that really freaked me out the most was when he told me that, I had to like double check and confirm for myself. I walk out, I look, exact same thing I just saw and experienced.
Yep.
I was like, hey, where's mom? And then he was like, I think she's in the room, like talking to somebody on the phone. And I was just like, yo, like this is a little trippy. So I go walk up to it, open the door, crack and peek my head. She was on the phone. I was just like, okay, that.
Yeah.
I was trying to like, I don't know how I was trying to process it, but I was like, okay, that was just interesting. I just left it as an interesting experience.
Mm-hmm.
So then a few months later, while I'm still in Korea, I end up staying with my cousin's family, and like they live in a different part of Korea. So same situation again. I don't know if I was necessarily emotionally charged at that time, but I remember I was, the way it was set up, there weren't like a bunch of different like bedrooms and stuff. Basically it was just like a big living space, and everybody literally just slept around the living room for whatever.
Yeah.
So I remember like lying on the couch, and I was like face down in the couch. It's a leather couch. It's super hot and humid again. And I'm just like, yo, this sucks. I can't get to sleep. And then, same thing happened. I blink, feels a little too long, open up again. But this time I immediately remember what I just went through. And in my mind, I'm like, oh shit, not this again. And it was weird because I was in a different position, like head down this time. So yeah, like face down. So I was just like, that's really weird.
Like you're bowing kind of thing?
No, just kind of like, I call it the skydiving sleeping pose, where you look like you almost fallen off a building. You just kind of spread out.
But you weren't touching the ground. You were kind of like...
Yeah, I was just like, I was on the couch sleeping, and then, I hear the creepy laugh again. Thankfully, I had like the wherewithal to not get too freaked out. Still creepy though.
Yep.
So I'm like stuck there for what seems like a good while. And then this time I wasn't really able to like fully astral project, but I do remember like...
It was the same laugh?
Same laugh. But I do remember almost being able to like look up, peek around a little bit, but I couldn't move around like I had before. And then eventually, same thing, go back to my body, wake up again. And I was just like, yep, this ain't it, dude. I got to figure something out. Thankfully, it didn't happen again after that trip. And then it's really never happened to me in this country. It just seemed to be back in Korea. And a part of me wondered if there was something like maybe, me being Korean, even though I was born in this country, that's 100% Korean. 23andMe, my 23andMe results are basically a recipe for kimchi. Like you can't get more Korean than I am. So
hey, my 23andMe is like literally recipe for chicken fried rice. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? It said 97% mainland China. I was like,
I got it right, bro. Everybody likes fried rice though.
Yeah, fried rice is pretty good.
Agreed. The goat. But yeah. I wondered if I was like, there was some type of like spirituality or some type of energy that caused me to, I don't know what it was, basically.
I feel like you're very similar to me. Like the few times I've had sleep paralysis, you get the feeling like something is there.
Yeah.
But like I've looked and I've never seen anything.
Yeah.
But I've heard things.
Yes.
And for me, I've never heard laughter. I would probably freak out if I heard a clown laughing, bro. I would probably be like, oh, no. But
I still don't like clowns.
What I hear, I've heard my own name numerous times.
Oh.
And it would be like a Jason. But here's the creepy part, right? It sounds like someone's whispering it into my ear. So as I'm having sleep paralysis and I'm just like, oh, I should probably keep my eyes closed.
Yeah.
And then I just hear it. And it's like, Jason. It sounds like it's right here. And then that just freaks me out even more, you know? And I just try to calm down. And I do a thing where I'm double jointed on my finger. So as soon as it pops, I was able to get my hand back and then the rest of my body. Okay. And I remember one time I had sleep paralysis. It creeped me out the most, but it wasn't actually anything creepy. So I woke up and I'm having sleep paralysis, not knowing that moments before my brother had just came in the room and then he left. So he was closing the door, but he closed it very slow. Like he just kind of like pulled it a little bit and walked out. So when I open my eyes, I can't move and I see my door creaking close. Whoa. That's all I see, right? And I'm freaking out. Yeah. And that was the first time I got out of sleep paralysis by popping with my. That's how freaked out I was. I was flexing so hard, and I popped my hands, and I was able to get out. And as soon as I got up, I was like, "Yo!" And then my brother comes immediately into the room because he just left, and he was like, "Weren't you just asleep?" And I was like, "That was you? Like you just moved the door?" He's like, "Yeah, I just left." I was like, "Oh boy, we thought we were haunted." Right, you know,
gotta grab the strap, dog.
Yeah, no, it was like the worst timing. But yeah, that happened one time when I had sleep paralysis. Yeah. And when I was growing up, I remember it didn't even have to be sleep paralysis. One time, like I sleep on my back. Okay. Like I sleep straight up like this. But when I was younger, I used to sleep on my side a lot. Okay. And one reason why I stopped sleeping on my side was because I would go to sleep on my side and I would hear the whispering. Oh. Like it would sound like it's on my ear or right behind me. Right. And it was so weird because every time they only say my name. And when I was a kid, it started with my brother's voice. It sounded just like my twin brother. And it sounded like he was calling my name. And I remember the first time it happened. So when we were younger, we slept in separate rooms. My parents separated us into 2 different rooms because we would mess around too much as kids and we would never go to sleep. Yeah. So I was down the hall. He was on the other room. One night, I'm sleeping on my side and I hear it. And it's like clear as day. Like I'm not even asleep yet. I'm just like, oh, I need to go to sleep. And I hear it. Jason. Oh, no. And I thought it was my brother like at the doorway. And I look over and there's nobody. I even got out of bed, walked all the way over to the room, and he's passed out. And I was just kind of like, that's weird. Yeah. But that happened probably like 7 times. And that's happened to my brother too. That's weird. Where he's heard it and he thought it was my voice or he thought it was my sister's voice.
Oh, so he'll hear his name being called too.
Yeah. Like he's heard his name being called too. And I was just like, that I can't explain. And I don't know what that is. Yeah. You know? And like my grandmother and my grandfather, when they passed, I saw them about a week after the passing in dreams and visions, and they never say anything to you. They just give you a look, and you can kind of feel like where they're going, if they're in a good place or not. But I've never had like an astral projection occasion where like I heard something. Like even when I astral project, the only thing now that I think about it was the girl I saw in the closet that was crying. I could hear her crying. Oh. Yeah, and it was like this little blonde girl, platinum blonde hair, crying, but I wasn't scared of her. You know, I talked about that in the first podcast, and it was weird because it's like my mom's bathroom used to scare me for some weird reason. Like that master bathroom gave me weird vibes. Right. And then one night I had an astral projection trip, and I go in there, and there's a girl just standing in the walk-in closet crying, but I wasn't afraid of her. And that's what I think it is. Like you can, if you're astral projecting and you see something, right, because you're in the spiritual realm in a sense, I feel like you can feel it. You can feel if it's positive or negative energy. Yeah. One time I saw 3 little monkeys, and they were just hanging around my staircase, and they just looked at me, and it was almost like they wanted me to follow them, but I was too chicken to follow them, and I was just like, I just sat there and I just kind of watched them.
You made the right call.
Yeah, no, but I talked to David downstairs about it. He was saying that, you know, like in Buddhism, the creation story started with like the 3 little chimps. Sure. So I have no idea if that's connection or whatnot, but I wasn't scared of the monkeys. It was just kind of like I was in awe. I was like, there's monkeys running around my house. Right. And you know, that's the thing. Like if you've never had that experience, if you've never had an astral projection experience before, it's very hard to explain to someone. Like it like you explain it to them, they're like, what do you mean you're awake the whole time? Like you have all your thoughts, all your memories. You feel like you're wide awake, and then what you see is what makes you believe. you know?
Right.
Because you might have had an astral projection trip, but like to you, you don't really like, I guess it hasn't fully hit you yet, or it's your age. Because the last time I astral projected, I was 22 years old.
Okay.
And I did a lot of research when I was in high school about it. Because when Insidious and stuff came out, I was like, that's a real thing. Like, other people experience this too. And I did all this research. And then when I was 22, 23, it happened. And that's when I was like, okay, this is real. Because I had my full head. I did all the checks. No power. Couldn't see my reflection in the mirror. It's crazy because I was like checking things off the box. And then when I woke from it, that was the time I told you when I saw death. Yeah. When I woke from that, I literally changed my life because I felt like regardless who sent death to me or if death was just there by coincidence, I took it as a sign that if I kept doing what I was doing, which at the time I was working in Atlanta, I had a nice little gig going on, but working really odd hours, hanging around probably not the best people, and I took that as like, if you continue to do this, death is near, and then a week or two later, I got up and I left, I had boys hit me up and they were like, yo, bro, like you moved away because I'd just broken up with a girl at the time.
Gotcha.
And they were like, oh, you're running away from the girl, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I'm not running away from no girl. I'm running away from death. Yeah. And I didn't tell anybody that. I was just kind of like, you can assume what you want, but I'm leaving because I need a fresh start. I need to do something. Right. And, people thought I did the move for money and whatnot. For 2 years, I didn't make no money. Yeah. I was bartending. I was doing whatever. I was working for free just to learn, and I was getting mentored at the same time. So that's the biggest thing. I feel like whatever happens in life, I feel like everyone, first things off, I feel like everyone gets one chance in life. One chance to make it, like one free handout. Sometime in your life. It could be when you're 10 years old. It could be when you're 60 years old. Yeah. You get one shot at something extraordinary. And that's it. Some people take it, some people don't. But I do also think that everyone, they go off path sometimes. Right. And new guidance comes in whatever form. You just have to see it that way. It's like you might have a coincidence happen to you and you might think nothing of it. Or something might happen to me and I might see it as like a message from God. And I changed my whole life around about that. Regardless if that was a real signal or not, you did something with that. Like you turned it into positivity, kind of thing. And you went that path because of what happened, versus like, there's plenty of people that have these paranormal experiences and stuff and they take it all as negative experiences and all they get out of it is fear. Yeah. So that's my biggest thing. I wanted to really kind of tell people like, hey, you're a normal guy. I'm a normal guy. Try to get as many people on this podcast that just are normal people. And we all talk about experiences that we can't really explain. Exactly. I feel like look at the internet. The internet is huge now, right? You can look up whatever you want. And you look into astral projection, lucid dreaming, sleep paralysis. You look at how many results you get. The other people that have had it, and you're just like, okay, this is a common thing. You look up ghost sites. And you have people that are like, oh, if you go to this spot, you'll see a ghost. Or, it's like, it's a lot of stuff. And I feel like you don't have to necessarily believe it, but you can be entertained by it. You can entertain it and, just listen.
Just be open-minded about it.
Yeah, that's all it really is. One of my other buddies that I went to jewelry school, he actually hit me up the other day because he watched my first podcast. And he was like, you remember when that thing that happened to you when we were in Tennessee? Because I went to Tennessee for jewelry school. And I completely forgot about this. Shout out to my boy Alex from Ohio. But he was like, remember that time? And the time he's talking about was when I was in Tennessee. I had called my brother and talked to him. And then I went to sleep. And that night, I kept hearing something whispering my name. And it was the same. It was my brother Jackie, his voice saying my name, but multiple times in the same night. Okay. And I remember the next day I told Alex, and Alex was like, what you on, kind of thing. But he remembered that, kind of thing. And he like brought it up. I completely forgot I had that experience too when I was in Tennessee. That's pretty wild. Like, it's just like a creepy, like, it's like imitating someone else's voice,
Right. Okay. It's, yeah, I'd say you definitely might be a little more tuned in with it than I am. Like you said, I try to find a reasoning for everything. But that experience I shared, it's one of those few things where I'm just like, it just, I had to accept it for what it is.
Yeah,
now
it is what it is.
But I still whether if it comes to like spirits, ghosts, anything supernatural, paranormal like that, I'm still a bit of a skeptic. But you know, there's definitely always a little bit somewhere in the back of my mind where I'm like, you know, it could be true.
It's funny because people that have seen ghosts or claim they have seen ghosts, like, they will immediately be like, oh yeah, of course there's ghosts,
Yeah.
you know. But someone who's never seen a ghost, they're like, oh, I don't believe in it. Or you have plenty of people that believe in ghosts that have never seen a ghost before in their life.
Right.
And to be honest, like, I mean, all the stuff that I've seen, whether it be from sleep paralysis, well, I haven't seen anything of sleep paralysis, I've just heard stuff. But astral projection, I wouldn't, you know, you can say that's a ghost, but as far as like real life, like seeing something like last night, did I see a ghost at my house? No, like I've never seen a ghost like that. The ghosts I speak of are the ones like when I'm astral projecting, that's what I believe to be ghosts, like the spirits in that realm. But I'm not one of those guys gonna be like, I saw a ghost like in person, blah, blah, blah. You know, I feel like the more you're looking for it, the less likely you'll ever see something like that.
That makes sense. You gotta let it come to you.
Yeah, like, well, that's the thing. Like, no one wants to see a ghost, you know. Unless, you know, it's a loved one or whatnot.
Right.
There's crazy things that happen in this world, you know.
Okay.
And it is what it is. I really just wanted people to tell their story because it's fascinating to people to hear like how we started this podcast, like what you're doing, what I'm doing, kind of thing. And all of a sudden we segue to supernatural stuff, and then they're like, okay, so it's not just like the crazy people that talk about this stuff, you know. And, you know, some people want to talk about it more than others, you know. Some people have crazier stories. Some people don't. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you came on. I know I've been keeping you here because you got to go somewhere pretty soon.
Yes, sir.
And then Eric's still hungry over there. So, you know, Eric's pushing the buttons today for us. So, we want to end today pretty quick. I don't think, how long did we do today?
Yeah. 51.
51?
Oh,
wow. That was quick.
Yeah.
That was quick.
That was awesome.
Yeah, thank you for getting on.
Appreciate you having me on, bro.
Yep. And then,
Yes, sir.
Cut.
The most abrupt ending.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest.